HTTP. Oh, something came up! Hey, I'm not so bad at this. Now let's see. There it is!
My cape dragged on the ground because it was a tad bit too long, so I cut it. Made a few other alterations to the original design and had my sidekick sew it up on the singer. For real though, I assume that you're already familiar with what it is that I do here. Good. So I'm not going to go into any further details. Outside, a siren wailed. Inside, a tea kettle whistled. Recoria removed it from the burner. I said, be careful not to burn yourself. They each took a sip. The liquid within was hot to the lips and remained the same as it made its way down their esophagus, a process known as drinking. She asked if we were ready. I whispered, not yet, honey, and got up from my seat to kiss her on the cheek. The legs of the chair squeaked on the floor. Her legs opened under the table like doors. I forced my phallus in her hand after presenting it like, look at this. Presentation. I heard her say, we're gonna be late, babe, and something else that was muffled because her mouth now was stuffed like a mushroom or pepper. Everywhere is a bedroom when I'm inside her cunt like a vegetable. I moaned in her ear like Loeb that I'm gonna come soon. With her bare chest exposed, I can't help but to check her out like an expo. I could tell she wanted to go soon, but not before I exploded in her womb like a shaken up can of soda. Or Diet Coke and Mentos. Most girls are mental, and this one's no exception. I came buckets, pulled out, and got a couple droplets of jizz on her stomach. As I was grabbing a rag to clean it, she said, leave it. I RME'd at this statement, then lowered my head and kissed her belly like it was pregnant. Ray, can we stop at the store for cigarettes? Sure thing. The invitation laying in the kitchen atop the shelf holding the wines and spirits read, you are cordially invited. We had a lengthy discussion about whether to attend or not. Figured it'd be worth a shot since we don't really do anything else. Recoria put on a different blouse, the one we picked out. Because girls have a hard time doing most things by themselves, I got behind her and tied the knot. She said thanks for the help. Not a problem, my darling, I think we should be going. Another siren rings outside our building like drying wet clothing. Our feet on the pavement like litter. Frame to frame like a picture, scene to scene like a movie, we made our way to this party dressed like Andre and Erykah Badu. Get a clue, we're cool like ice cold. 5 blocks later and we arrived at our destination. Little shorty Recoria wanted to go home right then and there, and like nothing ever happened, we turned around and retraced our footsteps backwards.
And now I'll sign you up for online services, okay?
Okay.
Okay. This is a browser for the World Wide Web. You launch it by double-clicking here.
What? Double click?
What are you going to do with a clip?
I thought that's what you said.
No, see, at the location here, you enter the URL. It's really not that difficult to understand.
I remember we used to kick it different. Back in the day, we never hanged out in a basement. Usually outside like a picnic, around a bowl like a table, a young white bull, not even yet eligible for his permit. Under the trees, smoking the trees, no greener than Kermit. Mid-grade strain, had to remove the seeds like a surgeon. Still sometimes got a migraine in the morning. One time hit the fragrance before it was banned. Don't remember how we landed it. Next day I said, kid, I'm never doing this again. Digital records we would spin on an infinite loop like Eminem. The album, that is, because the playlist would mainly consist of cannabis and instrumentals. I was heavy into hip-hop during this period, now I don't really listen to it. Our thoughts would span an area that was once barren and fill it with conversation. Usually laced in the air was laughter like it were pollen. A solid crew of 2 to 5 dudes, always on the move, making moves like a cruiser. PT. Drank the liquor straight, no chaser. Would get blackout drunk, funk doctor. Drove when I should not have, and learned that everyone's a cunt. I still kick it like punt, except now it's more by myself. The few I keep close know, no verbal recognition. Real wolves eat, no matter the occasion. Some of my old best friends now feel like complete strangers. I've came to the conclusion that if you have pull, you better use it. True love is an illusion, and I say this out of experience. Talked a lot of shit that was expensive, but I backed it up with action. Cold reflection in the mirror like an assassin. The time spent as a kid has a definite end. Stuck in a finite loop of work, sleep, and food. Don't really want to hang out with you because I'm not in the mood. That's just how life goes, I guess. Oh wait, I haven't seen you in a while. How about we go out and grab some dinner? A couple of days later, plans canceled. That's just how life goes, I guess. A personal anecdote. It's Ray Tosim on the net. The map said head due west. Sand dunes surrounded my every step. I paused for a second and questioned how I got myself into this mess. There was a group of girls to my left. None of my friends were near. I took this trip on a whim. Being the only male here, they probably figured I'd be good guidance to them like a father. How much farther? We can rest once we find shelter, but we are not staying here in the wide open. That would be wild. Lauren got closer. Her hair was incredibly short. I mistook her for a lesbian. I never met these chicks before yesterday. It was either use my vacation or not get paid. I boarded a train Thursday, not a plane on Friday, and I overheard these girls say, "Get that man another drink." Then all three of them got up and filled the vacant seats near me. One explained all their names. There was Lauren the leader and a Laura from Georgia. The reserved one was Kimura. Tomorrow we're going on an expedition. If you have no other plans, how would you like to come with us? What is this? I haven't even introduced myself. Do I have written in my expressions that I am a chump? But I answered quick enough. Yeah, sure, I'll come. You know, if you don't want to sleep in a hotel tonight, you're more than welcome to stay at my house. Confidence bounced off of Lauren more so than myself. He wasn't worried at first, but if it mattered, I was outnumbered from the start. Another round of drinks were brought, and we all drank up. To our new friend, Ray. Let us cheers to a planetary escape. Giggling now, a smile made its way onto everyone's face. Once they made it back to Lauren's place, all Ray wanted to do was sleep. The smell of breakfast woke him up at 6. Let's eat? No thanks. You're going to need your strength, Ray. We're going hiking today. My strength comes from within, Lauren. I usually only eat 1 meal per day anyway. On the table there lays our outline for the day. Starting soon, we were to head to the park, follow these coordinates until we reached this mark. A full weekend excursion, shouted Alora as she poured coffee for the 4 of us. What the fuck am I doing here? I'm underprepared. His traveling bag was stuffed to the brim. That was the singular possession he carried on him. Clothes and a knife. One in his pocket and one that was quite longer than a human's forearm. After they all finished packing, the group was gone. We took a car to the spot, and now that leads to us being lost. The drawings did not match any of the formations located in this park. Something was off. Ray stopped to check the compass. The girls felt this was their moment. Kimura fell over on purpose. Lauren falsely exclaimed, "Heat exhaustion." We all instinctively rushed in. Poured water in her mouth, but she wouldn't swallow, so it all dribbled down her chin. Chest soaked, Ray spoke, solemnly. We should rest here for the time being, and before evening we can leave if she is ready. By then, Kimura awoke. The sun still glowed, even though it was dimly. Our itinerary had us reaching an old abandoned village that was once the scene of a rampage. According to history, a man hid his family far away from society and raise them inhumanely, inbred and in captivity. It is said that at night you can still hear their screams echoing amongst the trees. An unpleasant breeze, as brisk as tea, greeted us upon entering this crude-looking collection of huts. The full moon it now shunned. My blood it run cold. I turned when I felt the cold pinch of a warm liquid that dripped, affecting the actions of my central nervous system. Kid, I couldn't react for shit. Lauren was standing there holding a syringe. Obviously the culprit. Her girlfriend surfaced at once from one of the huts facing up north. No shirts were worn, still every inch of their skin was covered in blackness, tattoos of which I couldn't even begin to distinguish any sort of familiarance. Altogether, they resembled a cult or a small group of Satanists. His head was sensitive like the tip of a clitoris. The fire illuminated their movements, all three shadows dance in unison around Rey Tosim as he sit, or rather lay. The girls were just getting ready to play with his bate. Suddenly, the flames cracked loudly, swayed back and forth uncontrollably. A visually appealing mist did spray, and his screams joined those that were first heard amongst the trees.
In a world of compromise, to be.
She came in covered in soot, looking like Beatrix Kiddo from Kill Bill Volume 2. The booth was bigger than where she came from. In the womb, she manifested the embryo that was beside her, so upon birth, Mom and Dad decided she was evil and left the blanketed bundle somewhere out in the outbacks of Australia. Somehow she remembered her name was Angelina. Her hair grew quicker, and before not too long, she was the size of an A doll. That was the first. Ordering a water now because she was dying of thirst. Will I be taking a menu today? I suppose, even though I already know I'll be having the special. A casual diner, quiet, save for the chatter of some of the customers. The regulars sat at the counter and drank their coffee black. I could feel their eyes. Inside their minds, they surely judged me. The skirt I wore was short. The last time I was seen alive was during work. A surfer found me on his way to the shore in the morning. I waited for the coroners after the news reporters and bounced once we reached the hospital's morgue. Woke up thinking about George and regretting not leaving that message on his desk next to the typewriter. I left faster than a NASCAR driver on the track like hangers. This lifestyle involved payment in exchangement for pleasure. I came in highly recommended. All I've ever known before this was vengeance. The female assassin in attire from Paris who could also speak French. No hit was a miss, a private militia's greatest weapon because she didn't even need to escape death. Cold calculate the risks before I would accept. Kid, there's only so many different wigs to select if I wanted to start again fresh. Thaddeus, Beaumont. The name kept running through my head like Sprint, but for what I must pull myself together. He knew me as Eva. A weaker individual might fret at the mere thought of the impending storm ahead. I stood up and paid the cashier with a tip. Have a nice day is what she said as I left. Not looking backwards, I had things to do and people to screw over. Outside wet from the rain with no poncho. I traveled back to where it all happened, the guest suite at the Hyatt. Quiet as a riot, I snuck past the doorman looking elegant and then pressed the top button in the elevator. They was waiting for somebody else. Dinged the bell and they were surprised as hell. Nervous as well. The Romanian Jeremy was especially worried. I could tell. They had me held helpless, tied to the sides of the mattress with soft cotton bondage restraints while all four of them penetrated my anus. I had plenty of experience, yet lacked in the amount I could stretch my ass in comparison to the chicks who practiced, like Monica Wilde and Violet Monroe. Those are my girls. But nevertheless, once I stepped foot in that bitch, I was coming for heads. Pulled the Kershaw from my boot and slashed the neck of the guy who stood nearest. His blood it flew onto the cheek of he who was closest. I moved like a cobra to him, bent the arm he was using to defend, and with the bone that protruded, I put it through his chest. At least as far as it could go. Reached down to pull another Kershaw from my other boot and clapped both sides of his skull like a round of applause. He fell to the ground. Obstacles now make slithering around feel more like some sort of course. She wiped her hands on her skirt, retrieved the tools used for a close quarters war and threw. The third guy dropped to the floor after his blood splattered like opening a bag of flour. My knife flew faster than an Al-Qaeda jet attacker, suicidal bomber child. The impact was nasty. I heard his voice get raspy and then nothing. It was like he was trying to communicate something to me, but like I already said, nothing. Jeremy standing, shocked from the events like an electric eel kid, which made him an easy target to hit. I slid into his shins like catcher versus runner, got on top of him like cowboy straddle, and asked if he remembered about Eva. The response was trivial. 4 bodies at the minimal. She continued to joke until there was a knock on the door, but not long before, like a sous chef, she filleted the flesh of Jeremy's midsection and then got up to check what she had heard. The peephole showed a fisheye lens view of the horror these dudes were probably waiting for just moments ago. If this were a phone, I'd have hit ignore. Fuck that, unlocked it. Then walked right past her like, what about it? My hands, I didn't even wash them, just wiped them on my skirt again, proceeded with caution to the lowest level exit. The stairs were probably my best option. My heels click-clacked on the linoleum. Luckily no one was around. I averted my eyes down to avoid any unnecessary contact with the locals, and hid my accent just in case because it didn't sound normal. Still, I wanted to be cordial. Almost to the entrance doors now. Ma'am, it was the bellhop. We hope you enjoyed your stay with us. I responded most definitely. It was lovely. I'm sure my escapade made front page paper the next day.
Isn't that where Rey saw that cunt who killed Eva? Fuck, I have a habit of getting involved with the wrong bitches.
He was just 10 years old, he witnessed the tragedy unfold. Not old enough to know, but old enough to learn. He opened the door and walked in on his mother alone. Well, not really alone. What used to be his father could be seen laying unresponsive on the floor. Something like 30-some stab wounds. The dude wasn't making any moves soon. His mother, she crooned a sad tune that sounded familiar. From the cradle to the dinner table, that melody always escaped her. Arms now spread like she wanted him to join. The blade made its second to last impact in the middle of her chest. Before she lay to rest, she said in a bloody mess, I tried my best. You're destined for greatness. As the blade made its way to her pancreas and she thrust yet again, Rey just stands there, blank expression. To lose something precious, his parents, I held them dear to me. Could this have ever had anything to do with me? 911, what's your emergency? Hello, yes, I'd like to report a murder-suicide. Maybe you guys could send an ambulance to 305 Courtside Drive. Maybe the youngster cried. Maybe he held in his pride and calmly sighed. Small town, so it didn't take long for the rescue team to arrive. The news, it made front page paper. The sirens, they drew attention from all the neighbors. Here comes a Cuba, running to his side like a sister, clinging to his arm tight like glitter on tinsel. All I could envision were them first 2 stab wounds, bleeding holes that spiral and moving mouths that don't talk. I thought out loud to myself, What in the actual fuck? Officer Patterson stepped down from the porch and put his hand dangerously close to my neck, then he removed it real quick like what the heck, rubbing his knuckles together vigorously, visibly in pain like he's just been electrocuted by something huge. Strange to say the least. Almost 11 years old with not a place to sleep or eat, and this feeling that keeps to seep out from deep, a combination of grief, confusion, and disbelief. Boy, do you have any place to stay? Family, grandparents. Akuba then quietly mentioned that Rey can stay with me for the night. We only live right across the street, and I'll make sure everything will be alright. I'm afraid that's not going to work, little girl. If he has no legal guardians to get involved, it'll have to be taken up amongst the courts. A man of slender stature approached and respectfully spoke. Sir, I think we found a note. An unlikely friendship began when another one ended. In the mortuary, I hanged until all the shifts ended. What do you need, kid? Just trying to tempt spirits like a Ouija board, but I didn't say it. Nothing in my voice sounded empty like the space between Mercury and Venus. There was a void in my heart, and I was feeling it. All day I was lingering in these hospital hallways like death. It's a wonder like woman that no one's mentioned my presence like Christmas. I wouldn't be here had this tragic event not happened. Flashes of the accident play back in his head, shake it like metro station to rid him the burden of guilt for not being there. I doubt anyone was prepared. The weather was fair. A pale-skinned maiden with hair the color of lemons drove by in a van. A gypsy lady wearing purple lipstick had nose rings like Dennis Rodman. My friend asked me out to lunch. I sat at home and played Overwatch on the couch. Said I feel like being by myself. How about tomorrow or Friday? I'm trying to level up this second account. Well, word up, son. I guess I'll just go for a walk. Okay then, bruv. I'll talk to you tomorrow. Oh, how I couldn't have been wronger. Even if Regina Spektor kissed me where it was sore, it wouldn't make me feel any better. At the funeral parlor, I was the one in charge of the arrangements. Decorations hanged and flowers sat in vases. The director's name was Raymond. The age of the deceased man was 23. Same as me. The FD, Ray T, had to be pushing 50. In all his years of service, he's never experienced a coincidence quite similar to this. 2 victims with no known relatives, no living next of kin, the mortician observed and wrote in his report. He gave it to me for a look. Now what I can't figure out is this strange mutation. You don't just change blood types overnight, and to add to the facts, this has happened twice since I first started here in the 70s. Before this, I just didn't draw like ponder any correlation like a graph comparing 2 sets of information. He had a crude sense of humor like oil. He said we may need to investigate further, especially seeing as how we're both single bachelors like Bam Margera's uncle, Don Vito. So with that, we went full detective mode like Inspector Go-Go Gadget. None of us carried badges. Ray Tosim had access to a medicinal practice and many multi-purpose instruments that could prove useful in our search. The funeral director tucked in his shirt after hiking up his white lab coat like the scientist Moria O'Darin. I grabbed a pair of pliers that could cut through wires and pieces of metal like it were butter. We probably shouldn't meddle in what doesn't involve us. You're right, except we could be next. I know of a doctor in Portland, Oregon who's never set foot in an operating room. Curses like fuck you, dolls with the human hairs made of porcelain in jars of salt for the shrunken heads. Charms like cereal most people would eat in the AM. Or bracelets girls would wear given to them from their best friend. Kid, we leave tomorrow. At the airport we checked in. I popped 3 Xanax and fell asleep waiting to take off on the tarmac. Last thing I remembered was the flight attendant had fake breasts like Christy Mack and looked like she got abused by her ex. If only I hadn't have slept, I would have made a passing attempt like NFL quarterback Brett Favre when he played for the Packers. Kid, I get them numbers. Now up from my slumber, already in the Uber, like what the fuck happened to taxis? Traffic was a bit of a drag, but not really as bad as I had initially expected. Rey Tosim texted. I sat motionlessly in the back seat, looking deader than a possum, feeling like I just ran a gauntlet. Powerful option, should I wake up or wait it out like walk it? Rey said please leave the vehicle running. I do not know how long I will be. Decision made. In the car I will stay. Later that day, he relayed to me like race what had transpired during the brief encounter between 2 doctors on the opposite ends of the spectrum like autism. Indeed, I listened like class was in session. After I decided I needed some medication, reached inside of my front pocket, unscrewed the lid, took 2, and proceeded to pop them like lock and drop it. Kidded the Super 8, I had to have ate up to at least 8. Everything Rey had to say went in one ear and out the other. Out our motel room door, I stumbled and fumbled like a bad handoff with the handle on the way out. Not giving a single fuck if the door was closed or not. Found a cafe that looked shabby right off the front main entrance sign-in desk lobby and grabbed me a brewski, longing for someone to just hold me. 1 beer turned into 3, then 4. No one near to hear me slur my words, enabling me to drink another 4 more. Not for better, but for the worse. Big tips like white French when I spend, so I said to the tender of drinks, no questions. In walked a woman whose birth origins were hard to pinpoint, possibly because I was drunk at this point. Fetched myself another Xanax and drained what was left in the glass as she talked about my past. This doesn't add up. I stood up and almost collapsed. Rey moved fast like a raccoon digging in trash. Where's this kid at? Followed his same path by instinct. Asked the barkeep, had you seen a man about 5'10", wearing all black glasses? Kinda looks like John or Sean Lennon in passing. The sentence came out hot like vomit. Yeah, he went with some vagabond looking broad, responded the guy behind the high-rise counter with not a stain on his apron and a red handkerchief hanging like he was making some sort of statement. How long ago, chief, if you don't mind me asking? About 15 minutes, I'd reckon. Can I catch up to them was the question. Hesitant in his demeanor when he finally decided to answer. Well, they weren't on foot. That chick is known to travel around here in an RV van with 3 other people looking like the devil's rejects. Rumor has it they might be psychopathic like Sid Haig or Captain Spaulding. The door flew wide open. The bell didn't even have time to chime. There's a guy all bloodied, moving slowly like a zombie in the parking lot, scaring everybody. Rey ran to the rescue before the concerned individual could scream anymore, wheezing. They said my blood was too thin, then threw me out of their moving vehicle like garbage. Someone shouted, "Dial 911" in a panic. The air was cool. It was the afternoon. I assumed the light winds blew in from the Pacific, even farther out west than our present location. Rey Tosim took a deep breath of oxygen, and as his lungs expanded, he tasted poor fluorocarbon-based chemicals which are often used as a substitute in blood transfusion. But first, it should be duly noted, I am a doctor, he alerted the still-watching crowd of spectators. He held his new friend's head in position because it wanted to keep rolling back like prices at Kmart. Let's go, he whispered. But the kid's been unresponsive since... I don't know when. Got home and she already started sucking her big bro off, and it ain't nothing sexual. My little sis has just got a hunger for human blood like a vampire. Not that it matters at all, but we live in a castle inherited from our ancestors in Romania. I'm just telling ya. She likes to wear all black like a whole. As a whole, we turn in increments, increasing the population of the undead for no rhyme or reason, kid. But that's not the point of this. We had no master until, that is, a mastiff barked out in the distance. Before that, there was only silence. On our doorstep stood a figure. Who would have thought our lives were about to change forever? Into the underground tunnel system, I pushed my little sister, then turned to the front door and answered. Mr. Tosim rang in his brain like migraine until he let this man inside the place where he stayed. Mini T on his chest like a priest, looking like he hasn't ate a meal in weeks. First time he communicated my name, it was unspoken. Big robes on like a merchant who would sell pocket watches to children. If I wasn't a hardened criminal, I'd have been intimidated. But I've committed multiple instances of murder before, so I didn't feel very threatened. Instead, asked the question, what do you think it is that you are doing? His lips moved like a ventriloquist. Again, I felt that same sense of buildup of pressure in my head like a compressor. Under the totalitarian authority of the 30 or some librarians, Rey and Senna Tosim are to be apprehended before the day's end. And with that, I fled. 20-some bats from Africa flapped as a form of cover. Meanwhile, I changed into vapor like boiled water. A round bag hid my little sister, who is now shapeshifted into a statue holding a pot. She said eventually they will find us. I pulled up my pants, so what then, and thought long and hard about our options. Tried to call Marcus, but the phone kept ringing, so I stopped it. For 6 days we lived in the mountains like Ted Bundy when he was wanted, off of berries that were sweeter than chocolate and the remnants of carcasses like a vulture. Except this decision had a reverse effect on the way my younger sister's enzymes would process what she was fed. Unfortunately, we had to make our return to the city. Waiting was nobody. It looked and felt like a complete and total quarantine had taken place, occurring within less than a week. But even more to our dismay, waiting were members of this mysterious organization apparently out to get us. It appears we were captured at last. Alas, we woke up cuddling in a cell smaller than a cubicle. Are you okay, big bro? 2 guards came in and gave us both drinks. The look on my sister's face was great. The taste of what we drank was a relief. It was exactly what she needed. Her cheeks blossomed then. I let her finish my cup, but with the last gulp, she took the goblet and raised it to my mouth. She poured it back too. Senna said, I love you, Rey. Rey said, I love you too. They held each other tenderly as the guards swayed like the breeze and paced like they were the ones caged, awaiting further instructions from their superior councilmen and or women. If I could help it, I would have tried to escape. But why tempt fate? Senna's head now rested in the center of my lap. I gave it a tiny pat and stroked her hair like petting a cat. I could have swore I heard her purr. Keys jangled, then were roughly inserted into a slot to unlock. Stand up. The time has come. You have both been summoned. Down a dark corridor we followed, where each footstep grew more hollow than hollow. Another left turn, another hallway. A candelabra was lit, positioned above a round table. In the chamber we just entered, where seated, neat and orderly, were 7 individuals, 3 female and 4 male. Presumably members of this strange group we still had so many questions about. A man with long hair like Lestat stood up and asked if we were aware where we were at. I think the fuck not, buddy. Would you be kind enough to tell me? His response was incoming like luggage. Here we are in what I would call the sanctuary of knowledge, or the sanctuary for short, and in it one learns. We lecture adolescence. Cut off promptly like an alarm ringing abruptly in the morning. Oh well, was all of this necessary? And Rey waved his finger in the air like the universal signal for crazy by the ear. Indeed it was, my young one. Neither one of you 2 siblings will be leaving until you both complete what it is we are teaching and you receive a grade we deem acceptable of achieving. A lift revealed itself from the ceiling. Sent his grip tighten around my arm like a tourniquet. Come now, your training shall commence. It happened gradually. I repeatedly tried to stay away, but being a man of routine, it wasn't hard to find me, and I eventually braked. The chemistry was sudden between us, a passionate rush of lust mistaken for love. Anyone could have seen you needed protecting from yourself, from the jump. From an outsider's perspective, I had to have looked dumb. We started dating later that month. I felt happy to be stuck, put all your needs before myself, and only asked you to get down on your knees and suck my cock. Our relationship was doomed from the start. Cupid's arrow didn't hurt at first, but the mark it left on my heart looked worse than a second-degree burn. Looping the third, I straight. Looped in the third. Look in the score. On a bunt down the line. My attention to detail was excellent, refined. I fired off my shots in rapid succession. Cunt, you never surprised me with your actions. The merciful tactician plans on being ambushed, and it's because of folks like him I always am alert. Mindful of the day our separation would approach, yet hopeful in thinking that it won't. In hindsight, it was mostly my fault for trying to make these things work. I treated you like a problem, which you were, the only one I couldn't solve. Rey with an E, Tosim.com.
Твой мир постоянно меняется. Ты способен измениться в любое время, и твое сознание чувствует эти изменения.
Что это? Мир, в котором ничего нет? Мир, в котором никого нет?
Мир истинной свободы.
Свободы?
We had it in our grasp, the great golden mask of legend. We trekked through the desert to find it in a pyramid shaped like an Anubis. Ray Tosim and Stanley Ipkiss partake in a tale packed full of action and adventure like Indiana Jones and the Philosopher's Stone. Dry heat like Orlando, but yo, I'm in Pennsylvania where I wish it were winter. I get a call on my cell phone with an area code of 954 from some guy in Florida, probably wearing a Marlins hat like he thinks he's Derek Jeter. Ray's on the other end of the receiver like, who is this? An avid adventuring enthusiast seeking my assistance on a site I previously visited. Which is fine, kid, except I've long since retired. Let me make it worth your while. A slight pause followed by a barely audible breath.
Это правда, Италия, Синзи. Ты так долго не мог осознать очевидную вещь? Синзи, ты дурак.
And so the journey began. Not a member of any agency, my frequent flyer miles accumulated enough for 2 round trips. Expense free. Ray said, put it on me. The bags we carried were Gore-Tex, waterproof, up to 30 feet deep. At best, you never know what lies ahead. On the charter plane now, we had to watch our heads. We couldn't understand the pilot as his accent was thick. From our end came a lot of come agains. The English-speaking natives from North America were in it for the long haul. Grounded now like you caught your daughter in that internet chat room you told her not to be in. But little do you know she frequents. Hopped on her camel, saddled back like Walker Texas Ranger, and rode off into the sunset like the end. Was given a muzzle loader from the aviator for protection. Then I reached into my little backpack like Dora the Explorer and retrieved the same exact map I used last time. Barely visible lines. A piece of paper damaged by time. And stained by age. And temperature change. All because Ray didn't take care of it. He never thought he'd have to use this thing again. Especially seeing as he hardly made it out alive, his partner didn't survive, and they definitely didn't find what they set out for. The great golden mask of legend. Started to wonder if it was just a thing of legend. But the information presented based on factual evidence by Mr. Ipkiss laid stakes in my wavering opinions. Radiation levels that rival those of Chernobyl, except for it was heavily concentrated in just one area. I was interested to say the least.
1秒前の自分と今の自分がどうして同じ人間だってわかるというの？